Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum to our viewers and listeners across the world and in Pakistan. Today I have the great pleasure of welcoming the great Sufi master, Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, to our session. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, and welcome to the program, Shaykhna.
Thank you.
And I also have the pleasure to welcome Ali Gokal, a dear friend of many decades, lives in the UK, does his own business, and a great admirer and follower of Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, like myself. Ali, welcome to the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you for having us and hosting the session.
Thank you. My pleasure. Just a quick introduction that today, and I hope we have more series of these sessions. Today is a session on the concept of Tawhid. And we'd like to hear Shaykh Fadhlalla's immense perspective on this. And just for those who may have been joining this for the first time to hear Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri is an acknowledged master of self-knowledge and spiritual, and he's a spiritual philosopher, and his role as a teacher grew naturally out of his own quest for self-fulfillment, which a lot of us want to do in this world, and his informed awareness of the real politic of the world around him has compelled him to seek a truth that would reconcile the past with the present, the East with the West, the worldly with the spiritual. Shaykh Fadhlalla's writings and teachings are a tremendous link between the ancient wisdom and our present time. And he's a descendant of 5 generations of well-known and revered spiritual leaders. He has taught students throughout the world for over 30 years. He's an author of dozens of books on spirituality, on Islam, and self-consciousness and awareness. Sheikh Ali Bhai, I lead on to you to seek the first question from Sheikhna.
Thank you, Heather. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna. It's nice to see you again. I wanted to really ask you about this concept of Tawhid, which is very central, if you like, to Islam. What exactly does it mean? I know in English it translates to unitive. I believe you've used the phrase unitive reality in some of your books. So really, what does it mean? How do I see reality? How do I experience unity? How do I perceive it? And what exactly does it mean by living or seeing through the eye of unity? And then really, how does that tie into the creed that we all profess, which is La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah? Thank you.
The whole story of creation is that of what you call the concept. It is the reality, and it's the only reality. Everything else are shadows of that reality. In science, they call it singularity. And in traditions of Islam and other religions as well, you have the same refocusing on the issue as had been expounded by so many great beings in the numerous Abrahamic traditions and before and after. It is that when there is one, there are no discords, no dualities, no confusion, no choice, no so-called freedom. There's only one. And here also in our own times, all human beings, wherever they are, trying to bring about a certain unitive understanding so that there is less animosity, less warfare, less aggression, and so on. There was only one, there is only one, there will only be one. But in order for that oneness to be truly in every way entered to, unified with, known, adhered to, we have to start with its shadow, with duality. So life on earth is based on duality, the up and the down, and the good and the bad, beginning and an end, and acceptable, rejectable. So that's the whole story. We are living in a zone of dualities, multiplicities, pluralities, having emerged from unity, returning back to unity, after the illusion of otherness vanishes, when the body is left, emotions and memories and minds are no longer. So there is only back again to that mysterious, boundless, timeless, eternal unity. So it's not a concept. It is the only truth. Everything else are aspects of this truth. When it recedes further and further and further until it becomes the opposite, which is a lie. That's the whole story of human beings. And we've been fortunate in the last 5,000-10,000 years. We had repeated ways of being reminded that this is the purpose of creation. This is why we are on this earth. And this is why we sometimes are a bit more content, and most of the times we are not. And that is why we suffer if we don't recalibrate with that unity. Recalibrating with the unity means there are no conflicts in the mind, in the head. It's clear. That's all what it is. That means you're stepping out of the illusion of movement in space and time into the eternal now. That moment, that touch of the now is the earthly manifestation of timelessness. That's why we respect the moment. That's why we respect time. We say all what you have is time. The truth actually is almost opposite that. It's time that has you and me. We're caught in time. We are arwah, souls, spirits, which are boundless, mysterious, caught in time and therefore space for a while, to be puzzled, to question, to do whatever is possible to touch the zone of timelessness. And that is where most formal religions also come into an important role, through worship, adoration, losing the self, losing the illusion that I have the power to do or not to do. The whole issue is the falsity of the I. Where are you? Where am I in deep sleep? Why am I so different when I'm angry as when I am in a pleasant mood of hospitality, generosity, and kindness? How do these things come about? It's an experiment that each one of us is being subjected to, so that we reflect deeper and deeper and deeper and go higher in intelligence until we reach the conclusion that there is only one. There has only been one, there will only be one. In order for that one to be referred to, calibrated with, we are caught in the zone of dual consciousness, of conditioned consciousness. When I'm deep sleep, that consciousness has moved like a torch from shining on things to for it just to be light, not shining on things. Unless, of course, you're dreaming or you're hallucinating. But otherwise, consciousness is a light. Whatever comes across it is illumined. And we know things through the dark side of them, the shadow of them. Light itself is light. And it has again duality. It's photons, which are entities, born and die, and wave function. 2, 2, 2, 2. The Quran says, and we created of everything twos. وخلقنا من كل شيء زوجين. It's like that. Whatever exists, whatever we can discern, is one of two. And therefore, we're in a state of constant search. What shall I do? Is it the right time? Is it the right place or not? And so on and so on. So that we come back to the moment. And that moment is sacred because it's the closest to timelessness, to eternity, to the divine, to the sacred. It's all what it is. So unity is what encompasses everything known and unknown. It is the primary power, effulgence, radiation of the divine, of God, of Allah. So the more we recognize it, adhere to it, live by its light, the less we suffer. And the normal, healthy human being is driven not to suffer, not to be confused, not to be upset, we want to be in the moment, each one of us. And we wish and hope the best for all of the others. But if I am not there, if I'm in confusion, in dualities, multiplicities, and inner quarrels, then obviously I will bring about more of my own state into this arena. So the whole story is about perfecting our path with determination and will back to that unitive field, which is the only field that ever exists anyway. But there are illusions that covers it. There are different nets and different, if you like, vague uncertainties that cover it. Until you know you're clear. And if there is nothing there, then your mind is clear, then you're relaxed and you're present. And what causes personal, local, international, universal animosities is lack of referencing that unity all the time, returning back to it all the time. And then you can put things in perspective. Disagreements, difficulties, needs, uncertainties will be put in the right perspective. That's all. And each one has to do it. No one is excluded from this situation. Until such time, you know, you, I, he, she, everyone is, in fact, is a ruh, is a soul or a spirit, which is mysterious. And it is boundless, and it's eternal, and it's timeless. But it's taking an earthly journey. During this earthly journey, we are often facing uncertainties, difficulties, conflicts, challenges. It is then that wisdom has to come in. That's why it's all about upbringing. Does it concern you? Is it important? Have you been asked? Or are you going to add more confusion to the already existing, if you like, animosities? It is all to do with courtesy and adab. And this used to be very much a societal thing. People behaved themselves. But once that thousands of years of way of human being, way of life, began to be broken down into individuals, where we are now, then there is no referencing what would the uncle say or the aunt. It's all what you and your ability to move and exercise the illusion of freedom. That is where we are now. It doesn't mean this is bad, but this is the outcome or consequence of thousands of years of the need for communities, clans, tribes, relationships, to a situation where people say, I don't care. I can go anywhere else and so on. So if you transfer that you don't care into caring for your own soul, or referring to your own soul or spirit, or to Tawhid, then it will be all right. Because you know you're accountable. You will face it after death, after leaving the body and the mind and the memory. You realize what a mess you have created. If you are present in the moment, any minute you know, your life can be transferred to the earthly conditioned consciousness back to another level of consciousness. That's all with it.
Sheikh, well, thank you very much. Ali, do you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, it was really to do with, you talked about this wisdom that, you know, in the old days when we lived more in groups as societies, and you've had in recent times a breakdown of that, where life has become a lot more individualistic. So where does that wisdom come from? You said now in many ways you have it. You sort of saying you don't care, you direct that care towards yourself. Where does that initial wisdom come from? Does it have to come from discord? Does it have to come from not seeking answers or happiness or contentment outwardly, that you need to look for it inwardly? What is that magic button that people need to press to really to understand that the answers are very much, you know, within themselves?
Wisdom is not one button. There are series of connectedness. The entire business of being alive and experiencing life is through connection, links. Now, the all tribal affinities of trust, respect, relying upon, and now it's changed. It's become your professional relation, your other relationship, your internet connection, your so many other things that have replaced it. Wisdom is the zone of reference that I look at in the hope of reducing suffering, mistakes, errors, regrets, guilt. So it spans across time and space, as well as previous, if you like, times and historical events. So the past and how it happened and how it was good or bad is in a way ingrained in us. So we have an innate reservoir of how things can become better and how things can become worse. But that needs to be inculcated and also practiced so that it becomes available and handy. The more you use it, the easier its referencing and connection will become. The less you use it, the more you are completely wrapped up in your own anxiety and state of mind, the more you're isolated from how things are or what is happening now or this time in the world. It's very different from what it was 5 years ago, very different from what it was 50 years ago, on and on and on. Because of the increased number of uncertainties, we say, oh, it's very difficult times. It is, but equally, it has evolved. We have all evolved. Intelligence have grown higher. Awareness had increased. Consciousness had become sharpened. So it isn't that everything is deteriorating and so on. In a certain aspect, yes. But in the broader sense, it's going higher and higher towards its origin. So The Quran tells us that the will of God will prevail. Inna Allah balighun amrah. And what is the will of God? To be at one with God, to know God. Everything else is darkness. So it's moving in that direction with certain amount of what appears to be over a few decades or shorter period of time as being very, very difficult, turbulent. But here we are in this zone with all of its improvements in communication and connection and in ease and in wealth, but equally there's increased poverty, increased uncertainties, increased, if you like, dishonesties, and so on and so forth. So this is where we are. So we cannot escape it. What remains is the recognition individually. The more frequently you refer back to your inner state of presence, the more you're likely to interact with the world outside with the least suffering or regrets. That's all what counts. It's not, but we interfere too much because of past expectations that have not been met, past disappointments, and so on. We all have been subjected to these things. Nobody's been left without disappointments. And it's often, it is due to ignorance. You know, I had expectations from them to do A, B, and C, and they didn't do it. So I'm disappointed. The appointment was wrong to begin with. So that's what. So once you recognize, no, you were acting in false expectation and ignorance, so you wake up, say, Astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. I ask Allah, forgive me. Allah is all forgiving. And now I will try to be a bit more certain if it is as I hope. Even then, you can never be ever 100% certain. We live in a world of uncertainty. You're hanging on air. Any minute your soul or spirit may leave your body. You know, certain measure of certainty, but you like to be very certain. This is what each one of us aspires for. That zone belongs to higher consciousness. It belongs to your soul or spirit. In fact, your soul or spirit or your ruh is not subject to certain or uncertain. It's beyond the duality of that. It is at another zone. It's min amri Rabbi. It is not in the zone that we are functioning. Is it certain? Is it uncertain? The ruh doesn't know any of that. The ruh is as it is and flows in utter perfection because it's in the zone of Tawhid, of oneness. This life of ours in duality emanates in pulsations from the zone of Tawhid. And therefore, it's alive. Individually, is the same. I'm alive because there is something in me radiates life. So it's all about life and the quality of life. To maintain that quality of life, I have to safeguard outside noise factors, interference factors, and all of the other things that I have to be vigilant not to allow to enter into my domain. Otherwise, I'll be clogged. I'll be overwhelmed by uncertainties and so on. Therefore, I can't be present. If you're not present, then you're unable to discriminate anything, the good from the bad, and that which lasts longer, and that which lasts shorter, and so on and so on. There's no discernment anymore. There's no intelligence. And when you are more and more in the presence, and if you are able to stop thought, your intelligence will rise to its origin, which is divine and permanent. And that is the most exhilarating experience. the ultimate point of worship, reflection, adoration, all of these things is to be at a point which is timeless. It's from where time emerges. That's it. If you have done that, then you find so many people bring upon themselves the miseries they try to avoid by not transcending the emotional battlefields. That's it.
Sheikh, thank you. One last question, if you don't mind. Sheikh, the belief in the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, his essence and attributes, has been a topic of discussion for time immemorial. And then the concept of our accountability in when we transition into the timeless zone. For those who struggle with these two concepts, how does one help them in understanding the concept of the Creator, his oneness, and our accountability after we transition, so that they can reflect on the oneness of existence?
What is that to do with me? I would pray for them and run away. Why am I taking their burden? The Quran says, وَلَا تَزِرُوا وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. Everybody has to do it to themselves. Maybe you can help. Maybe you can rely upon with advice. But you can't interfere. There is a lot of religious or spiritual fascism. Sufi fascism. It's imposing.
Absolutely.
It's not good. You're there to tell them, look here, you are bringing it upon yourself, and let them have to struggle. There have been great many teachings, especially in Buddhism, that you may bring worse suffering by trying to do good. There has to be a point. Let them suffer a bit, and hopefully they will wake up. They will be touched that they are bringing it upon themselves by not being flexible enough, by not being reflective enough, by not being whatever. There's a limit. But that issue of empathy and sympathy, we have to accept its courtesy. Otherwise, there is always over-empathizing, over-sympathizing, over-interfering. A wise parent allow the child to make a mistake rather than constantly interfering in case there is an accident. You have to safeguard against an accident that cannot be reversed. That's correct. But let them make mistakes, let them make errors, as long as it is retraceable. But there are certain situations that you cannot undo them. That's where the danger is. And that's where, as a guardian, you need to interfere, minimally. Everybody has to go to, everyone is a universe unto their own. And every human being considers themselves, he or she, as the center of the universe and the most important entity ever. Once you realize, no, in spirit we are all the same, the arwah are the same, and as far as the ego self is concerned, it changes all the time. Every instant it changes, the shadow. So you forgive it. It's not important. And the spirit is the same. We're essentially one, all, if you like, the children of Adam. So we respect life. If you do that, then we become naturally patient, tolerant, and if it comes to you to help, because there is quite obvious that your help will reduce suffering or anxiety, do it up to a point. That's if it is asked for, accepted, received well. You can't do it. So it's courtesy. Knowing all well that all of it is from Allah, by Allah, and returns back to
Allah. Thank you, Sheikh. Ali Bhai, any
No, I think
last?
no, thank you, Sheikh. No, that's I've been hearing you for I think last 30 years, and your message has always been the same, and yet every time we hear it, it sounds completely new. So really, the
The
truth of
days
it,
are not changed, but the sun remains the same.
the same. Yeah.
The message is the same. There is only one, and you are created in a zone of two in order to, by will, by grace, by prayers, by hope, touch back the one and return back to the one, whilst maintaining your human life in duality. That's simple. You have to do it. And you have to be amongst people who are practicing that.
Allah.
And in different religions are given different names. In the case of Islam are called Muslims. But how many Muslims do you find are truly living, glorifying, joyfully Islam? See, they're not necessarily the same thing. You see. So it is to be alive by it, respect it. And you can only do that by if you respect life. In any form it appears. You can't avoid that which you may consider it to be harmful or in a dangerous, state of agitation. But you can never tell. Respect life. We have been, because of the Western ways also and cultures, on war for centuries now. War against poverty, war against this, war against environmental pollution, war. So whatever a new virus had appeared, we go on war, kill every virus. We are still too clumsy as human beings. We have no respect for life.
Allah.
And that's why we are suffering collectively. And that's it. But once you have touched that zone of cosmic oneness, nothing will suffice. You want to get back into that. And to get back into that is just avoid the humdrum of day-to-day life and the challenges that it presents all the time. Regularly, if you practice silence, no movement in any form or manner or emotions, you recharge. And you feel your life is wonderful. Life is wonderful. The life giver is glorious.
Subhanallah. Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, sir, thank you so much for your time, for your wisdom. I've been a follower and admirer, a murid in many ways of your wonderful insights and brilliant discourses for over 40 years, as I was recalling, maybe even longer. So we heard Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri, amazing discourse about the concept of Tawhid, the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the conditioned consciousness that we live in, the multiplicities and the dualities that are really illusions and shadows, because there is only one, and that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We come from him and we go back to him. And I think if that concept is very clear in people's mind, and the fact that we will eventually be held accountable as we transition from this illusion of the dunya to the higher levels of creation and existence, we will probably be living a more temperate and a more careful life, and be very conscious of what we do and what we say and how we treat others and our relationship with ourselves and the society at large. I think that really is the essence of our existence. So it's really the reflection on the oneness, the unity of creation, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Everything else is a shadow. I take leave now, inshallah ta'ala. I hope we will have more sessions with Shaykh Fadhlalla Haeri in the future. And I want to thank Ali Gokal for being kind enough to organize and arrange this session, for his wonderful questions to Shaykh Fadhlalla. Bid everyone goodbye. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.